Hey traders, this is Taylor with Top Pick Trading. I'm going to give you guys your Friday bar by bar. It's Friday, June 7th, 2024. And it was a pretty good trading day, so let's get started. This bar represents 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so this is when you could have started. We'd come in and see that it's somewhat rangy action with it appears to be your major support being at this level, major resistance being this level. We broke out of that, pushed back above. So let's draw our trend lines. Looks like maybe there's no break, no extreme yet, either side. This one may have one, but we may get a retest on this downtrend. We are back inside the major range though, so let's stay tuned and see. We had 8:30 news items, so you probably wouldn't have want to trade it until after that anyway, and you can see that's when that happened there. Just a massive bar, so you'd let this cool down first before you considered entering. Appears just a crazy fast move down with a break new extreme on that already. And it is starting to slow down right in here. I'd give it about 10 minutes. And so this represents 10 minutes after the news item. So we could start looking for some trades probably again. Appears like we may have, after this crazy spike, some type of spike in channel down. Not completely clear, but we're thinking short when we come back to the EMA. And we come back and we push right through the EMA. So we draw that micro trend there. We get a first entry short and no bar for a second entry short, unfortunately. Now we get the retest on this micro uptrend. You get a double top here. I would want something below the EMA here. This is also not clear if it already has played out. It could be tighter like this. So it's a little bit of an unknown in this area. So let's wait and see if we can get something clearly below the EMA. And when we don't, we get this rejection bar. It's right into the highs of this little resistance level here, so I probably wouldn't take this. But with that much rejection, it's probably going to trap shorts. Let's see. No trigger anyway. Pushes higher. You get the second leg up to a new extreme. See, we're past that now, so I'd start looking for something wider. And that actually fits pretty well. Let's see if it holds. We come back and we're looking for probably a second entry long now. This structure is a little clearer. And unfortunately, we get the second entry long out here in space, so no setup there. Pushes higher. Key entry or upper side of the trend line still holding. We get a first entry long, and we make a new high, so no second entry opportunity once again. We drop through that EMA. It's like a micro trend. This is probably going to want to retest, so let's see if we can get some kind of higher low after a second entry forms back on top of that EMA. Still no first entry. None of this is triggered. Now we get the first entry. And we get a second entry here just out in space. Downtrend has played out. But we want to see if we get something above the EMA. Maybe we can get a higher low. And you can see we come back to that EMA here. Push back below the EMA, unfortunately. The higher low happens here, but terrible location. We get like a fourth entry long, so nothing here. It's just kind of chopping sideways. Looks like maybe there's some type of little range here. Nothing really that static. Highs and lows are still moving, so you can see now we're making higher lows here. The highs are still holding though, and we push out of there. Strong push. Something like this. Maybe has an overshoot. Could be a midline. Hard to know. Get a new high, so no second entry. Pushing higher still. Looks like maybe the wider variant actually fits rather well. Still could be an overshoot. Let's see if we push up to the midline of that. And this also could just be the retest leg of this, so it may not retest. Probably wanting to come back and test this level where the news happened, somewhere in here. It's kind of hard to know. And we get a first entry. And inside bar for a second entry, so no setup there. At this point, we'd start seeing if maybe there's something wider here. We'll kind of see how it corrects to that location if it does, and consider a trade. There is some micro downtrend working here, it appears. It may have an overshoot, hard to know once again. Could be like this. breaks out of there, pushes to a new high, so not worried about that retesting now. We get a first entry long. I still want to push higher, but you can see now that we're finding some resistance in this level. Chopping higher, and we get this first entry. It made a lower low. It does appear like there is maybe some support here, but we didn't really get rejection. It's really just more sideways, and then a comeback push to that level. So I'd wait. Maybe we can get a second entry that's a little bit closer to this key entry point here. And we don't. It forms an equal high, and now we get this bar. This is actually pretty tempting. It's a little high up, and oops, and right into this resistance level. So maybe you want to wait on that one, but it's probably going to trap shorts that sold this triple test short, or really quadruple test short. Wish it formed lower, but you probably got them trapped. Unfortunately, it's just right into that high, so I may mark this just slightly too aggressive. If it had more room, if it formed lower, maybe you can consider it, but right here it's just not quite where I want it. We'd also see if we had some other micro trend working here. This is kind of wide, not perfect, but we'll keep an eye on it. Pushes a lot higher, so it would have worked nicely. Now we're back at this major resistance, not even really major, we only turned here twice, but this key area. Chopping sideways. Clearly some congestion in this area. This isn't really coming into play, so I'll delete that. This appears to have a break unless we just barely widen a little bit more. Still appears like probably a break. Let's see if this bigger key entry point comes into play. And we get this bar. This is a first entry long, second entry long. It does touch that key entry point, at least on the wick. Let's see if I just actually have this a little bit high. So if we go right off that close there to this close here, touches the wick almost here and here again. And you can see it does touch there. It's a first entry long, second entry long. You do have 4 bearish bars, but notice the rejection right there at that EMA and the support level. First break of this trend. So I think this is a good trade to take. And if you watch this form, very fluent. It was very fluent. So I think that's a good trade. You don't have much room once again, so you may want to do a smaller scalp. And it does work nicely, pushes way higher. This appears like retest leg of this blue uptrend. Pushes way higher, coming off that key entry point. You expect that. And we're getting close to this news item. It's hard to know where the resistance is since it was all in one bar. You generally want to go off the body of the bar, but notice here how big that wick is. All happening at once. It could be somewhere in here, anywhere really. Just keep an eye in general. And you can see it turns right there, pushes up again. We still got, I'm going to delete this so we can see where that wick starts. Still pushing higher. It appears this micro trend has a break a new high now as well. Getting near the upper side of this. And we push off there. Notice it's pretty much forming right at the high of that wick. So it comes back to the EMA. Strong micro trend in play. Make this a little bigger so you can see. We get a first entry, sells off, nothing there. This may be slightly wider, hard to know. Bouncing right at that key entry point now, but this is a very strong move down, and all your more local stuff has played out. You're also now coming off the overnight highs. So I think you want to wait here. Would have stopped you out. Notice also we came up short of the upper trend channel line here. So I'd rather get something above the EMA after another established micro trends in play. For now, it appears this downtrend is maybe has a little break in new low. It's hard to know. Bouncing at the closes from yesterday, still pushing lower. So maybe it's a little bit wider like this. Now it would clearly have a break and new low. Let's see how far down it wants to push. Bounces here, really far from the EMA. Nice bar, but not really at a key level. It's a little bit below this previous key level. So I don't think you want to take this. Maybe we can get a failure above the EMA. We get a first entry short, and then the second entry short forms down low, so nothing there. There's some congestion in this, or a small little range in this area, it appears. Pushes above that EMA now. 5 strong bullish bars. somewhat strong bullish bars. Draw that micro trend. Gets a break from it, it appears. New high. We'll see what happens when we come back to the EMA. We get 4 bullish or bearish bars in a row. It's hard to know. It's starting to seem kind of like a range, but we're not sure yet. We bounce here. This is actually a triple test. Unfortunately, you have this doji here right before, and you turned right here, so it is a second entry. And maybe there's a case for something wider like this, but you don't know at this point if it's, you know, crazy big overshoot or what. We'll watch this for now, but it's hard to trust this in real time, in my opinion. So I don't think I can mark it. If this doji wasn't here, it's a lot cleaner. Looks like it would have worked, but it's hard to know. You get a higher low now, just not quite back at that key entry point. So I think you do want to avoid that one as well. Not the best bar, would have worked. Now it looks like we may be getting a failure. So let's see if it turns right here at this key entry point and at the EMA. Fortunately, drops below, you get a lower high, but overall we're still somewhat bullish. And even this could be even wider. Notice it's still off that close. It's really hard to know. It's in the cleanest trend, so let's just keep an eye on it. Ends up reversing, lower high doesn't trigger, and it does bounce at this wider version, so this is probably valid. Still pushing higher. Let's see if it comes up to the upper side of this trend channel. Still thinking bullish, but we are wary of this level here turning prices. This big uptrend here probably wants to get a retest, but let's see. It's hard to know if we're range mode or bullish uptrend. It feels more like bullish uptrend, but we did turn very strongly off that news item level. We turn perfectly at the upper side. Yep. Come back. Maybe we can get a second entry. No first entry yet. This is obviously a micro downtrend here. Turns there. Looks like we have a break from this channel, definitely. And now this channel is probably going to want to retest. The big channel still needs a retest. It got kind of close, but not quite there. So you have your second entry here. Kind of a little bit actually at support. But let's see if we can get something above the EMA, maybe a higher low. And we do get that higher low. The bar's not all that great on this chart. On my second chart today, it actually was a perfect bullish bar on its high. So if you had a better bar here, I think you can take this higher low here. It's just not wonderful on this chart. So if you took a chance there, I get it. But or if you had a better bar, definitely. But for me, on this chart, I would hold off. Would have worked nicely. Continues higher, holding in this micro trend perfectly. Turning at this level, let's see if it breaks the trend. And you get this lower high here, very sideways. It's hard to know if we're just going to reverse here or if this is going to want another push up. If this bar here pushed down and then we came up and tested a little more fluently, I think maybe you can consider a lower high, but this is kind of just sideways. It's not really showing rejection yet. It would have worked nicely, but it's hard to know that. This micro trend now may want to retest in and of itself because it's pretty strong. So let's see, maybe we can get a second entry long if that EMA holds. And we get, this is, I would consider this a double top, so this looks like a first entry. And now we get this bar for a second entry long. Pretty much a perfect looking reversal bar. A little bit away from the EMA, but it's a higher low as well. I think you got to take this trade. You want to make sure you have room because this is still showing rejection. I mean, you saw it at the news item here, how fast it sold off strongly here. And then it got held up at the EMA, but it still sold off fairly strongly here. But with the EMA holding like that after this strong leg, it's probably going to be enough for it to retest. So I really like that trade. Turns at the resistance. Notice how even though we got the break from this green channel here, it's coming, the key entry point of it is coming back into play here, holding fairly well. And that happens a lot of times after your first break. And there you go, new all-time high here again, pushes higher. Let's see what happens. We got a strong micro downtrend working, and we may get several legs to a new high, but if you're playing it safe, notice that this big uptrend has a break, new high. This green uptrend has a break new high. This blue uptrend has a break new high. So all your downtrends may be played out, or excuse me, all your uptrends may have played out. So we may be switching to range mode here. Let's see what happens at the EMA and at these range highs. We get this lower high, but it's very sideways, right to the bottom of the move as well, right in the area where we exploded higher. So I think you need something better. You get a second entry short and a failure, but once again, same story. Now it's looking really stacked. It is turning off this level, but you don't have room to the bottom of that move, so I think you got to wait here. Would have worked for a small scalp. Now we get a first entry short, another second entry short at that resistance level again, but your downtrend is played out, so it's kind of hard to know what's happening here. It's just kind of choppy right in this area. No clear downtrend in play. It would have worked really nicely. Now this is a strong leg in and of itself, so maybe this is a new trend. Notice we bounced, at least temporarily, at this level. Comes back, pushes lower. Now we've got a new low from this downtrend, and it's still just pushing lower, really far from the EMA, nothing here. Maybe there's a spike in channel. This was hard to kind of find in real time. It's hard to know if it's, wider like this. That looks decent, but it's not off the wick. Sometimes in spike in channels, it's drawing off the body to start, so maybe this is valid. Either way, it looks like there's probably a break, new extreme from that. Very strong push, maybe an exhaustive push. Nothing here. Very far from the EMA. Let's see where we're turning. We're turning right at the opening level. We've bounced here once before. Come back, we get a second entry. It's far from the EMA. It's hard to know if your downtrends have played out. It appears they have. If you try to draw something wider, nothing really fits all that well. So too far from the EMA, in my opinion, anyway. No trigger, so wouldn't have tricked you. Now we're working higher, maybe something like this. This is the same story as earlier. It could be an overshoot. It's hard to know. There's a more local one in play right here. So let's see what happens when we come back to the EMA. We get a first entry long, and it pushes higher. Another new high. So once again, do we have an overshoot? Do we not? Hard to know. We'll draw it as if there isn't one, but we'll keep it in mind that it may have an overshoot. First entry long, chop sideways, nothing there. And let me draw this a little tighter. Maybe something like this. Not perfect, but fits decently well. Blew right through this level from earlier, so it didn't come into play. Actually, it did turn once, but then it blew right through it. We got like a higher low way too far from the EMA. Now we're coming back to that EMA. Let's see if we can get some kind of second entry long. We do have a micro downtrend in play now, so we'll keep that in mind. If I can draw it, there we go. We get a first entry long, and we get a second entry long that closes way too high. Your micro downtrend hasn't played out, so in my opinion, no trade here. We turn. Now we get the second leg down from the micro trend. Notice it was a double top. Second entry long is a bad bar after a really strong retest leg, so let's see if we get a higher low, and we don't. It pushes all the way up to the new high. We actually get a triple test short now, and you can consider this, a break, 2 legs down, and then a push to a new high. You don't have much room to the EMA there. It's kind of scary. If this closed a little bit higher, maybe you consider shorting it. Notice we're kind of in more rangy behavior now, so it's not just a clear uptrend. So it can be traded both ways in the right context. Downward move was pretty strong, not a clear channel, but notice we corrected a little more than 50% of it, so it may want to push lower now. So it's really hard area to know. Notice this level now has 3 strong rejections. First time lower, second time lower, and then this is, I say 3, but it looks like it from the signal bar. We don't know that for sure yet. I think if this breaks lower and comes back up one more time to test and gives us a little room to the EMA, I think we can consider it. And unfortunately, it just pushes lower. So it would have worked nicely, but it's just really hard to know that, especially after, you got 3 strong bulls here. It does look like rangy behavior, but I think you got to wait on that. And it appears we get a break new low. Would have worked really nicely, but it's just hard to know. Pushes lower. Gets another new low, just nothing through here. we get this second entry short, but it appears your downtrends have played out, even if it's this wider variant, which I don't believe it is, but if it is, either way, that also has a new low. So I wouldn't take this second entry short. May work for a very small scalp, and then it does trap you if you were going for anything bigger. Now we may have another trend working up, and it's just really hard to know what's happening here. I'd be looking for something to come back up to this level and give us a short opportunity. And it's turning here, which we have turned here some as well. Get a first entry long, gets an equal high, so reset your count. And we push back below that EMA, and I just realized we're 5 minutes after 3:30, so no more setups. So unfortunately we didn't get anything there. We'll see how the rest of the day ended up. So we chopped lower. I guess there could have been a case for something like this. This actually fits pretty well. But it was too late in the day. And if this, actually, looking here, it's a little sideways, but if this trade right here was earlier in the day, I think maybe you can consider that. It's right off that key entry point. It's off this resistance level where you tested it once, twice, 3 times, pushed it a little bit through, but really pushed back down. So 4 times, a 5th time, and then a 6th time here. It's your second entry was here, and then this would be your failed second entry long, lower high as well. So in a different time of day, I think that's a decent trade. A little bit congested, but the bigger context is in your favor there. But unfortunately, it was, less than a minute before the close, so way too risky there, in my opinion. So still, overall, a pretty good trading day. If you traded the second chart today, you may have gotten some more opportunities, but still had some really clean ones on the primary chart as well. You had this really aggressive one that unfortunately closed a little high. You had the second entry long, triple test. You had this triple test here if you really wanted to be aggressive. Unfortunately, the doji was there. You had this very, very nice second entry long. And then you had the one that was too late there. So I hope you guys caught some good ones today. Still pretty clear trading day. Unfortunately, just not too many good bars on the primary chart, but still easy to read, at least until later in the day. So yeah, hope you guys had a good trading day, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.